How's it going, everybody? I know you're seeing this list of Robin after seeing the thumbnail and title probably for this video and wondering what it has to do with it, but take a look at this top end for this list that I just picked out, right? We got Linlin, Luffy, Yamato. They don't share types. They are not searchable by any traditional searcher. Like, you can't use like one searcher to find out all of these, right? Well, now that has changed with these new card reveals right here. All of these that just got revealed are all searchers coming out in EBO2, right? They're all 2-cost events that essentially search for just generically anything with value 4 or more, right? And I'm looking at them. It doesn't specify that they have to be that color of that, right? So with these dual color leaders, you can use just any one of these searchers to find your top end. Even if you have top end that's mixed archetype, you know, things like that example list that ran, you know, Linlin, Yamato, and Luffy. 3 things that are typically not being able to be searched by the same searcher, but now we have these 2-cost events. And it really just kind of shows and highlights like where the game is going, right? And a lot of things when talking about the consistency of decks, like their key pieces, their top end, their game-winning conditions, a lot of the times they're not searchable for some of these decks. You know, like Rob Lucci, for example, can't search out Gekamoria. Now he can, right? All of these events are just main. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Reveal 1 card with a cost of 4 or more, then add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck, and they all have the trigger for activate this card's main effect, right? And they're all 2-cost. They're all celebrating, obviously, the 25th anniversary with EBO2, right? That is the whole thing coming out with that set. But I'm kind of just wondering what y'all think about this. Is this getting a little too crazy? Is it not that much? You know, I know what I talked about, but like, does every deck have room for a counterless event to just search out? Not even every deck that runs win condition top end run searchers at all for it, and you just use other methods of card draw or, you know, different types of cycle to get the pieces you need. But now we have a piece that any color generically can use to help make their decks a little bit more consistent. Now, are you going to run counterless events just to find those top end pieces? Not all the time. You know, there's top end decks or top of the meta decks that don't even run stuff that's, you know, 10, 9, 8 Don, right? For Blue Doflamingo, for example, I think they are running that 10-cost Kaido to draw 4, right? But they don't need it necessarily in every matchup to meet their win conditions to win tournaments. But the fact that this is now going to be in the game as a tool, I'm interested to see what deck lists are going to look like. I just know Enel players are salivating at the ability to search out all of their top end with 1 card. That is going to be annoying to deal with. But I just wanted to look at these cards and then look at some examples of deck lists, right? Let's see, just recently out of OP10, we got a Shanks list here. Look at the top end. Anything above 4 Don. Of course, Shanks has his Uta Searcher to find his Shanks, his Ben Beckman, right? All that good stuff. But now, say you wanted to just replace maybe the Uta or something else, maybe one of these events, for a couple of those searchers, at least like maybe 2, right? Just a couple, just to help you find any of your top end, right? Because Newgate, you know, Whitebeard, Dragon, all share different types. Rayleigh, can't search that with Uta, right? And they're all really good cards that conditionally, you know, depending on the matchup, you might want. And honestly, for a 2 Don commitment, it is not a lot to be able to find any of your top end. Now, again, does every deck have space for something like that? I mean, look at the events we have right now. 1 Rad Beam, 1 Bad Manners Kick Course, which is, again, a way to get rid of our non-counter cards. So I don't know if you want to put more non-counter in. And then 2 of the Divine Departure, the new event from OP10. A lot of these lists are very tight. A lot of them can't fit in 4 copies of these searchers. However, look at another list. I know this Bonnie list doesn't run the Baby 5 searcher, right? But traditionally, Bonnie has run 2 searchers to find both of their top end, right? We have Supernova with the 8-cost kid. We have Don Quixote do Flamingo from the Don Quixote Pirates, right? So you need the Baby 5 searcher for the Don Quixote do Flamingo and the Bonnie searcher, which we still have in this list, for the kid. But again, you're replacing 4K counter worth if you were to swap out that 1-cost searcher for this event, right? But is 4K counter worth being able to search out for all of your top end, all of your mid-range too, right? I don't know. Obviously, it'll take a lot of time with the new cards for some of their effects to, you know, come into play, like the decks that we're going to build. Just as another example, we got Rob Lucci. Obviously, Gecko Moria really makes this deck run. Kaido is being used more to deal with the lack of on plays from Blackbeard, kind of countering this deck. Then we've got 7-cost Jack. He's still hanging around. Very good card. These are all very good cards, which, you know, Kaido and Jack obviously share the Animal Kingdom Pirates, but Gecko Moria, Thriller Bark does not have that. So we don't even have a way to search out any of these traditionally, right? I'm not saying that these lists that are pretty much solved for the most part, like a lot of lists are kind of normalizing as you get to the top end and people are teching against other decks in the top meta, but it is just something to consider. Like all of these key pieces, these top end pieces, can be searched out with these cards, which is kind of crazy to think about. And it kind of changes how we might look at deck building going forward with stuff like this in the game, right? With access to tools to search these all out, what is that going to mean for these decks? I don't think it's going to change too much with some of these, but maybe going forward, you know, you might see stuff like that. And it is just kind of crazy to see, right? All of these events. And I gotta say, I love the art. I love it. It's very, very interesting. I'm a big fan of this. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a big fan. But just seeing these, and of course they're named after, like, We Are, you know, some intro songs, pretty good. Type music, right? So I don't know. Again, if a lot of the decks we're accustomed to seeing lists for are gonna have space for these types of things, but I feel like with some lists particularly, you're going to want to make space for it. Like again, with Enel and even you know, Robin, these decks that rely on their top end specifically, you might see these cards being run. And it is just so interesting to see for 2 Dawn being able to search out anything 4 costs or more. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that might be a power boost to these decks that do rely on top end, right? Like, let's just look at OP10 right now in One Piece top decks. See what's topping, right? We got Lim, of course, a deck that likes to ramp. So any purple deck really that's going to be ramping into their top end, I don't know. That might push some stuff. But Lim, you know, with so many new 5 costs, maybe not. But obviously, Blackbeard can search out his top end already, but again, we already have some Enel. I mean, like, let's look at Smoker. I think these type of cards are going to really benefit dual color leaders specifically because it leads or like leans into more of a, you know, different archetypes, right? There's not a ton of colors where, you know, there's great top end in both of red and green, but there's not a lot of a single color searcher, right, that can find both. You know, we have the Shanks for both sides of this top end here, right? But we are not using any searcher that can find them. I mean, for this example, right, you could obviously probably put in the Uta. I don't think the Uta 1-cost searcher for red distinguishes a color for it, but, you know, Shanks being, you know, red hair pirates, still, even in his green one, probably could search out from Uta. But say you're, for an example, you were running the 8-cost kid in the green side of this, right? You might have space for a couple of the searchers just to find them out, right? But yeah, look at, again, not that red purple Luffy is top of the meta, However, he is a deck that, you know, hangs around and he's fun to play. I'll say that. So people are going to be interested in him. And seeing this list, you know, there's not a lot of room. Again, there's not a lot of room. However, we do have a lot of stuff that can cycle through our cards and draw into more. So maybe if you have some of those events, just search out our top end. Because again, we have top end of multiple different archetypes, right? Dragon, Roger, you know, Ben Beckman, Luffy himself, Sanji. So we have a lot of different things we might bottom deck if we're looking with just the Nami Searcher, right? If you're looking for playing out the Nami Searcher, you might bottom deck some of your other top end. For example, maybe say we cut out the Nami Searcher in this list, which, you know, maybe that's good or bad, but just as an example, if we cut out that Nami Searcher, we can still then find our Luffy, Sanji, our 2Ks, right? A lot of our 2K. We can't find out the, you know, the 3 costs 2K counter, obviously, but a lot of our lists still can be searched with that event. And then you have other things like the Queen to cycle out those events once you found your top end and don't need to use it anymore. Just again, as an example, I know I mentioned Enel. I mean, just look at this list. Look at this list. Ace, Katakuri, Yamato. I mean, even the Russian L, you could find Luffy, right? You could find your 2K counter Frankie. Like, there's majority of this you can find. And then at the end of the day, it's a trigger. So, you know, Enel having so many of that with just recycling his life. It's crazy for the potential with like a list like this. And also, again, to specify, it says reveal one card with a cost of 4 or more. Not a character, just a cost. So this can also search out other events. Which is crazy. Other events, any 4-cost events, you know, your Rygo, your Gum Gum Red Rock, your Gravity Blade. So much potential with these cards. I'm interested to see if they go anywhere, or maybe it's just cope. Maybe it's not going to be as crazy hype as I think. But it's something to keep in mind going forward with deck building down the line when we see lists that rely on top end and maybe of dual color leaders that rely on different archetypes, right? It's something that you can consider with your deck to be able to find all that stuff consistently. It is only a 4-card search, right? A lot of searches you just saw with some of the lists are 5-card searches, which does make a difference. But again, just the fact you're generically finding anything with a cost of 4 or more is pretty crucial. You know, I think it's pretty interesting to see the game take this dive into something so generic for every single color. You know, this isn't any buff to one particular color over the other because every color gets this. So every deck in the game will be able to use this. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, let me know what you think of these cards down in the comments. Are you excited? Are you scared? Like, what are we thinking? I don't know. What deck would you want to run something like this in? Again, a lot of decks right now have not a lot of flex room. I gotta say, even though a lot of decks differ, you know, maybe 2 Shanks decks, for example, are going to run a lot of different stuff, right? But for the most part, just finding room for 4 non-counter cards can be pretty difficult. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. If you think you have a deck in mind for this, right, that would work perfectly. Obviously, some decks might not even care about this at all. Except for Blue Doflamingo, for example. Yeah, you have your Jozu that this could find. This could find any of your 4 costs, right? But for the most part, a deck like Blue Doflamingo probably won't want to run something like this as much as something like Enel, again, for an example. And then decks, of course, like I said before, that have access to searches to find their big boss monsters, like any Big Mom package, find the 10-cost Mom, or Blackbeard being able to find his 10-drop. They're probably not going to want to run this as they already have other cards like this, but maybe, I don't know. It's very interesting to see from a gameplay mechanics aspect. So yeah, let me know what you think about this card down in the comments. But either way, I don't know. I don't normally make videos like this for just a few card releases, but I feel like this has a really big impact that it can make in the game. I'm not sure if it will, But there's a lot of potential, at least. There's a lot of potential. So I want to hear from you. What do you think of these cards? Are you excited or not? What are we thinking in terms of what decks we're going to use it in? But yeah, that does it. Really quick video. Just wanted to look over these cards and kind of what they can do for the game. But either way, hope you all enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.